Hi everyone, Mike, your local farmer here with Mount Hope Farms, and today we're working on getting our seed drill ready for spring planting. As is typical in the spring around here, we've got nice weather mixed in with really cruddy rainy weather. So to take advantage of that nice weather when it happens, we try to go and work on stuff in the shop anytime it's really pretty cruddy out. So we're getting this grain drill ready because right now we are sitting in prime planting time for our radish crop. We try to no-till this in the spring. Typically, the earlier the better. We aim for the end of February through the middle of March is really our ideal time window, and we're into March right now. And so we're wanting to make sure we take advantage of any opportunity we get to get our radish no-tilled in. This seed drill was bought by my dad back in 1990, brand new. It's a little bit older than a lot of them that are out and around, but it really does a good job and it fits what we're doing. We have done a lot of modifications to it, however, over the years to make it fit our operation, our farm. So, since I know a lot of you probably aren't familiar with how a drill works, I'm going to go through some of the parts of this and what it does. This is known as an end wheel drive grain drill. What that means is this end wheel out here on the end of the drill is what drives the mechanisms that feed the seed down out of the box through the openers. I'll let you know what an opener is here in just a minute. This mechanical drive that comes off the wheel turns the shaft, goes over here into the drill gearbox. This allows us to select a gear setting to control the speed at which it turns the flutes. The flutes are these little pieces up in here. They're ridged, and I'll show you them from the inside of the drill in a little bit. That is what feeds the seed down those in the openers we have hooked up, which I'll show you one over here, down that tube into our opener. We have a couple of different styles of openers. I'll go through those a little bit more in a few minutes. And that opener, as the name says, opens up the ground. There's two discs in there. They cut a little trench in the ground and drops the seed into them. Now there's two ways of controlling the rate of seed on this drill. One is the drill gear, which controls how fast those flutes are turning. The other is this lever that can be moved back and forth when it isn't locked in position. And it controls how big the opening is that the seed is feeding into those openers, through the flutes into the openers. Now, another one of the modifications that was done on this drill are we put on these small seed boxes. We've used those for some of our smaller seeded crops where we need to be more precise on what our rate is and that are too small for the main box to use. We also have used those a fair amount when we're doing a nurse cropping program where we plant, for example, a crop of radish and we grow a crop of red clover for seed underneath it. We harvest that crop of radish in the summer. Then that red clover stand is established and ready to go for the following year. That's one of our programs. We've shifted away from that because it does hurt the radish yield a little bit, and we've really liked our fall planted red clover. Anyway, these small seed boxes have the same kind of settings and adjustments back down here where it takes off of the main drive box and controls the speed that this shaft and these flutes turn at. This also controls how open they are. The seed drops down into these tubes, which feed into those cups that go down to the openers. Another one of the modifications we've made to this one over the years is we made a folding tongue on this. Reason that we did this was we did not like pulling this down the road the full width. It's wide enough that inevitably you drop one of those end wheels into a ditch or into a hole, and then all of your openers get scraped against pavement. That does not do anything good for your openers. So Dad modified this hitch so that it hinges here and will fold up, and built a bracket back here so that we can dolly it up. And the front, he built a hitch so that we can hook it up. This is the wrong style hitch, but we were just moving it around with the forklift to get into the shop. We can hook it up behind a pickup and tow it down the road, and it is wide, but it'll fit. Another modification we've done is we've been playing with more no-till cropping all the time. We've put on some scraper teeth out here. They're on a spring tine. We can drop those in, and we have different spacings marked on here for different row widths. Where we can drop those in, it helps clear some of the chaff and debris out in front of the openers so that those openers get good clean solid contact with dirt and don't have a bunch of straw that's capping and blocking the seed from getting into the trough, into that trench that it cuts open. Another one of the additions is right back here we have tucked away a tongue extender. We've been using a liquid starting fertilizer for most of our plantings, and that tongue extender, when we fold the tongue down, hooks onto there and gives us enough room to fit the fertilizer tank that's on the back of the tractor in between the drill and the back of the tractor. Now, those flutes that I was talking about, here's the opening inside the drill box. You can see those ridges on the flutes. When we adjust that, it will move these flutes in or out, and that opens up or closes down that ribbed area that will feed seed down into the openers, thus adjusting your overall rate. Another thing that this is dividers between the boxes here. What this does is it allows us with these dividers in to have to use a lot less seed to prime the drill. It takes a certain amount of seed to fill the bottom of this so that you can feed seed down through the drill, through the openers, and into the plant, into the field. The crops that we would want this out for, and we have taken them out on occasion, is when we're growing a grain crop. The whole point of a seed drill is to get the right population of plants planted at the right spacing in that field. Too many plants too close together leads to plant stress. Too few plants planted too far away leaves it wide open for weeds to come. And the best weed control we have found is competition. If we don't leave that ground bare, if we don't leave open spots, it just closes that door for weeds and other plants that we do not want growing to get started and get growing. Now, I mentioned we do use a liquid fertilizer to start our crops with. This is our setup for it. We have a wet boom is what this is called. Tucked back in here, it's a piece of PVC pipe, runs the length of the drill. We hook up openers to it, and there is a spray nozzle down there underneath. We will band liquid fertilizer and usually a fairly heavy dose of beneficial microbes and fungi, bacteria and fungi, in there to start with those plants. Here again, we're trying to get those seeds to start as fast and as vigorously as we possibly can, because the faster we get them started, the more they will crowd out any potential weeds. A couple more things here. This style opener, we have a couple of styles we use. This particular style is better suited to no-till settings and to more wet soil conditions. The scrapers around here keep the mud from building up on the double discs. Those two discs that are on either side, they come down in and cut a small V in the ground. That's what the seed lays down into. This wheel behind helps pack and firm, but it also is setting the depth for our seed to be planted at. Our adjustments for this are at this spring. We can adjust the depth that we're going to be planting at, as well as how much pressure that wheel is putting down behind. This spring up here in the front adjusts how much down pressure we're putting on those openers. There's a hydraulic mechanism in there that will push down, and we have settings on that as well for how far down and how hard we want to push, and then settings with those springs to help dial in that pressure so that we're getting it to the right depth with the right amount of pressure. If you have rocks in your ground, you don't want it pushed down too hard because it will bust those double discs and cause damage to those. So that's a quick look at those openers, and I'll grab one of the other kind to show you what we have going on with those. This is one of our other styles of openers. It's got two rubber wheels on here that help set the depth and keep the dirt clear of the double discs. They're opening the V. This one tends to gum up worse in mud, so we try and save it for drier conditions that it's going to perform better in. It is more precise on depth than our other opener because the depth set is right by where it's cutting into the ground instead of way back here. So if you're going over rough ground, if you're going over anything uneven, this will stay more uniform and consistent on your depth set. Over here we have a flute that doesn't go to an opener, it just has a piece of hose sticking down. What we use this for is calibrating our set. We use it to double check and make sure we are dialed in where we want to be at for any crop that we're planting. We stick a jug down there underneath. This is catching seed, and we can use all those math skills that kids say throughout school. When am I ever going to need this? Well, this is where we use it. This is one of those times where we need it. We'll calculate out based on what that one opener, what that one set of flutes fed out. We're going to calculate out what we were putting down across the entirety of the drill and over however many acres we've covered at that point. This lets us make fine-tune adjustments throughout the course of the day to keep that rate where we want it, because sometimes it will tend to drift a little bit. Sometimes it'll start seeding a little heavier as the day goes on. Sometimes it'll start seeding a little bit lighter as the day goes on. Now, this may seem like something kind of funny to get too hung up on, but we do want to be very precise on what we're planting. We're trying to get the exact right plant population, number of plants growing per acre. And we're trying to get a uniform density so they're spaced out where they aren't crowding each other and causing stress to each other, but aren't leaving soil open and bare for weeds to get established and give us problems in. So that is what we're doing there, trying to keep that dialed in where it should be, in control, and why our starter fertilizer, our microbiology is, in my opinion, the biggest, most essential thing that we're doing out here, because it is getting results for us. It is making things work. That's why all those factors go into getting a crop planted, because how you start it is going to have an impact in it for the remainder of the life of that stand. It is my firm belief that if you have one that struggles getting started, it's going to struggle throughout the life of that stand. Whether it's 1 year, whether it's 3 years, whether it's 10 years, it's going to have an impact. Right now we have these openers set at 18-inch spacings. This is our ideal for our farm planting spacing for radish. As you can see down here, we have marks on the front where we're putting our openers. Different marks mean different things. But we've just gotten done respacing these to 18-inch spacing. Now we have other crops that we grow at 12-inch spacing. Some of them that probably should be grown at 6-inch spacing. However, we don't have enough openers for this drill to get it set up to plant at 6-inch spacing. And some of those crops that we think ought to be planted at 6-inch spacing, we've done it at 12-inch spacing and they've performed very well for us. So right now it's set up on 18s. We got it finished, got it set up on 18s. But whether we're changing openers over or whether we're changing the spacing on them, we have to move these openers at times. The first step is to lift the opener up from down there. We'll put a floor jack in underneath the discs here that are cutting our opening, and we'll lift up gently to remove this bolt up here. This undoes the spring and allows the opener to drop down. Then we have to remove these 4 bolts. Those 4 bolts go to this plastic block with a round opening. There's a tin piece in between so that the plastic is never pulled on directly. And these fit up on the front of this opener, just like this, so that that opener can easily be moved up and down to be engaged on the ground or lifted up out when you're making a turn or dollying it up. There's 2 of those per opener. We have to pull those off, as well as unscrew the hoses for the liquid fertilizer and biology from the wet boom. Then we have to find the appropriate spacing. Here again we have some marks on the inside of the drill here, and either respace the openers or swap out openers for the ones that we're going to be using. All in all, we can usually, if it's both me and my dad working on it, we have everything set up right and cleaned up right, which makes a big difference. We can get this drill switched over, ready to go into a different crop in usually 2 or 3 hours. So it doesn't take us too awful long if we're all set up right for it. The first time or 2 through on it, it took us considerably longer because there was a learning curve to getting it set up. But like I said, right now we're getting geared up, we're getting optimistic and chomping at the bit, ready to get going on planting some radish out here as soon as the weather cooperates and we have everything on hand to do so. When we get going with that, I'll be sure to shoot a little bit of video and show you what's going on when we're planting that radish. So thank you again for watching, and I hope that you liked our episode today. And like I've said before, be sure to go on our page, comment, ask us questions. We like to answer them. We like to let you know what's going on. I may have been all over the place. I may have been tough to follow on this one. Sometimes my trains of thought tend to ramble. So, like I said, go on, subscribe to our page, watch our videos, like, comment, interact with us. Let us know what you're wanting to know about so that I'm not guessing at what to tell you. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this and look forward to seeing you soon.